Okay, this is going to be the last video I make today because I made it my goal to make videos today. And I'm proud of myself. Proud, proud, proud. But I got to keep making videos because I start projects and I don't finish them. So I promise you guys, I'm committed to finishing this project of teaching you witchcraft and magic. This is going to be a short video. And I'm probably going to post a video after this that's going to maybe be a little bit more comprehensive and maybe even a little bit more academic about how to do research. It's very, very important that if you're going to practice magic and the occult and witchcraft, that you research everything, that you fact check everything. You pull all of your resources from many different sources. Why? Why is this very important? Why is it important that you research your shit? I'm going to be really, really straight up honest with you. Because witchcraft can heal and it can kill. It's not a joke, people. You can kill people with witchcraft. You might, well, how can, some of you might not believe me when I say that you can kill somebody with witchcraft, but I'm going to tell you how. Well, let's say somebody comes to me and they need some kind of healing spell, okay? And let's say I make them a candle, a spell candle, but I also decide that I want to make them some kind of spiritual bath, or I want to give them some kind of topical ointment that they can use on their body as they're lighting their candle to do their intention or say their prayer or their incantation. And I don't ask that person if they're allergic to anything before I make them the bath. And so I put ingredients in a spiritual bath that they're allergic to, like maybe they could go into anaphylactic shock from peanuts or from wheat or from something else. So here I go and make a spiritual bath for them. They get into the spiritual bath, they go into some kind of shock, and they drown to death in their tub because I was not diligent. I did not do my due diligence as a witch when it came to casting a spell or spell casting or helping somebody out. I had all the intentions. I had the best of intentions. This is why this is why magic and witchcraft is just not about intention. It's not all about intention. It's real. Like it has real physical, real world effects. And of course, if you're practicing magic and witchcraft, you're counting on it, that you're hoping that it does. But you could give somebody an essential oil. You could give somebody an herbal tea that, if they're pregnant, could create damage to the unborn fetus, could even create a miscarriage, okay? So traditional witchcraft, there's a huge component of herbalism that is practiced in witchcraft. Witches traditionally were herbalists. They were medicine men and women who were able to heal and to kill people with their abilities. And a lot of those abilities didn't just come from sitting and lighting a fucking candle. It came from actually working with roots. That's what voodoo is. Voodoo is plants. And working with plants and working with nature. So all of these things, all these practices that are really, really, really old and animistic and shamanic in nature and spiritistic in nature have a very, very strong connection to the physical world, to trees, to plants, to rivers, to oceans, to mountains, to forest, rivers, lakes, and springs, the ocean. All of this stuff is based in nature, okay? That's why you have to do your research on every single thing that you use. If you're going to work with herbs, you need to know both the medicinal and the magical use for that herb. So when you go and you write in your book of shadows, or when you go and you write in your grimoire, and you say, okay, well, today I'm gonna learn about lavender. Pick 5 herbs a week to study and learn, and put them in your journal. And take the back of your journal and kind of make the back of your journal your materia medica, your own medicinal Bible, for yourself. Let's say this week, I'll give you a homework assignment. This week, I want you to learn about lavender. I want you to learn about rosemary. I want you to learn about thyme. I want you to learn about peppermint. And let's see, what's another herb that's just laying around? Cinnamon, okay? There's 5 herbs for you. So what do I want you to do? I want you to write down the name of the herb. I want you to write down its botanical name, its Latin name. I want you to write down what its medicinal properties are, okay? How it can help you with health. I want you to write down the magical qualities of that particular herb, okay? And then I want you to write down any contraindications. And what is a contraindication? Well, that could be something that is could create a problem for someone, right? Because you don't want to necessarily be feeding somebody cinnamon if they're taking medication for diabetes, okay? Or like using essential oil that's has grapefruit in it, or grapefruit essential oil for someone who is on blood thinners. So you need to write down the contraindications of using that plant if you're going to be using the plant medicinally. And this is why I say you have to know both. Because when I'm spell casting, let's say I want to do like some kind of self-love spell. Self-love. Self-love is always safe to do and inspirational. So I'm going to make a candle. I'm going to dress that candle with my herbs. Maybe I'll use some crystals to decorate a plate. Maybe I'll write an intention on a piece of paper to slide underneath that plate as I'm burning my candle. But I want to burn that candle while I'm taking a spiritual bath. So I'm going to use that candle in conjunction with a spiritual bath, because it's my opinion that when you're casting a spell, you should use it in multiple ways. So I would use a spell candle in harmony with a spiritual bath. And that's what I mean about understanding the medicinal and the magical qualities of every plant. How to research. Well, the first thing you want to do is compile your list of source material. The fastest and easiest way to start looking up stuff, obviously, is Google. You can Google something, but just Googling something doesn't mean that you're going to get accurate information. So what kind of materials are you looking for when you Google anything about history, archaeology, philosophy, religion? Well, you want to look for scholarly articles. You want to look for articles that are written by theologians, scientists, doctors, people who are certified herbalists, and people who have been practicing magic and the craft for a very, very long time. You want to, do your due diligence, and you want to do really, really good research and try to learn about the witches and the people that you are going to be learning from or studying from or admiring or setting up on, whatever, as a teacher. You want to cross-reference all that information. You want to cross-reference it. If you're going to learn about a particular thing, then find like 10 different people that you deem as to be worthy of providing accurate information, and then compare all of those different 10 people's opinions about whatever it is you're interested in, and try to synthesize that material, okay? And I'll give you an example of, like, I'll use Vedic astrology just as an example to talk about, like, being interested in a subject and doing research on it. So let's say that I am interested in the planet Venus, okay? Because I feel like very, very pulled towards Venusian energies, towards that planet. Maybe an astrologer at some point in time said Venus was an important planet in my birth chart or in my transits, okay? Or maybe I have an affinity towards goddesses that are associated with Venus, associated with love. And there are male gods that are also associated with the planet Venus also. So it's not just females, there are also male gods associated with the planet Venus. What do I want to learn? Well, let's start with the most mundane. I want to learn something about the planet. So I want to study astronomy. I want to learn something about the nature of the planet. Like, what does science know about Venus? So always start with the mundane. Start with the mundane first and then build on top of that, okay? So now I understand a little bit about Venus, how long it takes to transit, what we know about it as a planet. Then I want to start looking into the mythology of the planet. I want to start learning about the myths of that planet, all the gods and goddesses associated with the planet Venus, all of Venus's qualities, which number one being love, but also it can be love and war. It can be knowledge, magic, whatever. I'm being very general. So then what do I want to find out? Is I want to find out how to invoke Venusian energies. I want to know the nature of the planet. And not just knowing the nature of the planet by itself, but also I need to understand the nature of the planet within the context of the entire zodiac. How does planet behave in every single sign, right? Because astrology is actually a very important part of my practice these days, and I will share with you astrological magic later on in my course. But as an example, when we're talking about working with Venus, well, Venus is going to behave differently when Venus is in Taurus opposed to when Venus is in some other sign. Venus is going to behave very differently depending on what other planets are transiting past it. Whether or not it's sharing a sign with like one of its enemies. We want to understand the aspects, or what's aspecting another planet when we're going to perform a ritual to invoke Venus's energies. So depending on Venus's placement, it could be exalted, it could be debilitated, it could be comfortable, it could be uncomfortable, it could be irritated. And these are all things that we need to know before we just run and start spell casting. So spell casting and practicing magic, like I said before, is an art and a science. It's artistic because obviously we want to make everything look pretty, unless you don't care about making things look pretty, and then you can do whatever you want, I'm really sloppy with my magic, so my shit's always all over the place when I'm putting something together. But what I'm trying to point out is that you want to have a full understanding, or the best understanding you possibly can have at the time that you actually spellcast or do any particular working with magic, recognizing that you will be getting real world results if you practice magic correctly. If you practice magic, and when I say correctly, what I mean is if you have your intention and you also have your materials, okay, to perform sympathetic magic, and you also have, just the force of the universe behind you, because you are accomplishing a purpose and you have the backing of the universe and those universal energies that are matching your intention, then your success rate should be very, very high. If you're a witch or a magician and your success rate for getting the return on your investment of time, energy, and effort into spellcasting is like 50-50, you are doing it wrong. your spell casting abilities and your magical working abilities should have between an 85 and 100% success rate, either of getting exactly what you want or getting something very, very, very similar or close to what it is that you originally shot for. So one thing I want to talk about, one more thing before we go for the day, is I want you to think about that when you're looking up things on magic and you're doing research, you want to look for old sources. You know, a lot of the stuff that's new and contemporary is not necessarily accurate. Most of the time it's wrong. You want to go back to older resources, like in antiquity. If you want to understand where a particular practice comes from, you have to trace it back to its origin. And we're going to be talking more about like origins of magic and witchcraft and sorcery and all of this, maybe even in the next video. But one way of being able to trace a spiritual practice or discipline backwards to get to the original source is by following the language. Following language and going back in time by following the trail of culture and history and archaeology and sociolinguistics and how language evolves over time. Those are the standard ways in which I trace back, trying to find the origin of any one particular thing. Language is like a direct trail backwards when you're trying to look for the origin or the root of something. Always look to language first before you look anywhere else. And that comes to gods, goddesses, cultures, magical practices, herbs, herbal remedies, how magic is used in astrological magic and herbal magic and all of that. All right? Have a great rest of the day, guys. And when I come back, we will study more witchcraft.